Yeah.
He's going to highlight the NRCS Graze model, and Jimmy's been instrumental in getting this Graze model updated and available and user-friendly for you to use. So, Jimmy?
All right. Yeah, and I don't get to share all the blame for the grazing school. Donna Amaral Phillips and John Johns and I went to Missouri to see Jim Garish at the Forage Systems Research Center in Linneus, Missouri. And if, it's still a center. It still does grazing schools there. They still do. Jim is now on a farm in Idaho and internationally famous as a grazing advisor. But we trekked there and we stole it. I mean, we did it. What you're seeing is word for word, talk for talk, almost exactly what they did 25 years ago. And appropriately enough, 25 years ago, it rained to beat all heck, didn't it, Donna? It was, and in fact, they quit. That's right. They literally stopped the grazing school early because the Mississippi was going to flood St. Louis, and there's a bridge. And if you've ever been across that bridge, it's huge, way up. Well, the water was underneath it when we crossed it to go home. So totally appropriate on the 25th anniversary of grazing school for it to be like Donna and my first experience with grazing schools. And Greg's talk really got me thinking about this whole idea about grazing myths. And it's grazing is something that catches the public's imagination. I mean, I like to take landscape pictures. In fact, I will, since we've already broached the social faux pas of giving you a calendar 9 months late, I went ahead and did it again, right? I gave you one of my barn calendars because I absolutely love pastoral scenes with barns on them, with horses on them, with cattle on them, but it captures the imagination of people. And so people, you know, for people like me who do get excited to watch grass grow, right? You know, that's great. And it makes people write about stuff. And it's exciting. But one of the things that happened, and it probably does this over and over again throughout history, is, you know, things come in cycles. On the top of my filing cabinet in my office, I have a copy of like the 1948 Yearbook of Agriculture. And you know what the title of it is? Some of you older ones might. Grass, right? And you can find things in there that we're still talking about today, okay? So Greg's talk, that's one of the things that kicked me off about Greg's talk is in 1986, when I went to work, oh, and that reminds me, I'm thinking 1986, I'm old. Speaking of old, we have a gentleman in the back I need to recognize, Bill Payne. Now, Bill, that's right, Bill's old. Bill and I were from the last century. But Bill is a technical service provider. He's also a board member of KFGC, and he's one of those individuals you can call and set up an arrangement where he can help you come make a grazing plan for the farm. And his information actually is under the tab where you're going to find my presentation, NRCS Tools, in your notebook. In fact, that's a good cue to let's get the lights up. Can we do that? Sure. And open your notebook to the NRCS Tools tab, which is probably halfway or past in your notebook. While you're looking that up and we're getting the lights turned on, in 1986 when I went to work, I was certifiably dangerous. It took 9 months for somebody to ask me something I knew. And when they did, they got more than they wanted, right? But one of the things that came out about that time was a series of articles about grazing and intensive grazing, and the main tenet that stuck with me, that aggravated me, was that if you will rotationally graze, if you will just rotationally graze, you can double your stocking rate. Well, you know, I'm a math kind of guy. I like math. Mathematics helped me marry my wife. She had a bad math teacher, and I loved her from the time I almost first saw her, and she needed algebra help, right? And so her mother, who liked me, thank goodness, said, call Jimmy, he'll be right over. And I was. She didn't have to hang up the phone. I was already at the door, right? Because I liked math, and we've been married for 39 years. So, but these articles aggravated me because I know that forages, this whole thing is a mathematical thing. And Greg talked about it this morning. Ray talked about it with benefits of rotational grazing, that it has to add up. Putting more fence up doesn't make grass grow anymore. And in fact, you can violate the stocking rate rules, like that picture Greg showed you, where there's no grass left, and that field is not going to produce what it can because we've gone past the stocking rate we need. So, one of the tools that we have in Kentucky, and you'll see it this afternoon, I think, afternoon, or later today, is the NRCS Graze model. And what I want to do, what you've got in your notebook, is the introduction and instructions for the Graze model. Now, I think we have all your email addresses, so I will send you a copy of this spreadsheet directly to you so you can run all the scenarios you want to on your farm. But what we're going to do is go through this new model, what it does, how it does it, and some of the limitations for it. And again, the driving force for me, and this is almost a 40-year thing, is that forages produce what they produce. Animals need to eat what they can eat, and it's just adding and subtracting, right? Adding and subtracting. So let's talk about the model. Let's do it this way. I'll show you slides, and we'll use this because you can look at the slide. I'm going to show you printouts, but then you can make notes on the instructions. Okay? I don't, because they can look at. They're going to see these. You've got these pages right behind it, so they can look at it. Let's keep on going. It's built on an Excel spreadsheet model, so any computer can run it. It's very simple. It's a very small file. Let me tell you what's the guts in it. The guts in it are a couple of lookup tables, and actually they're printed at the back of your handout. Anyway, one of them is a table of the forages by the proportion they grow every month. Okay, so corn doesn't grow in January, so there's a big 0 for corn in January. Alfalfa doesn't grow in January. There are a lot of zeros for January, right? And there's a table that has soil suitability group, which is also called the PHG, pasture or hayland group, and it's got the yields, because not all soils will grow forages equally. Okay, and that's going to be one of the intersections between my presentation and Adam's, because he's going to give you a copy of the output of Web Soil Survey. One of the tremendously powerful tools you have available to you is the Web Soil Survey. It's an online, digitized map of most all of the soils in Kentucky, in the United States. So if you know your address, and a lot of you are new to the farm or new, doing different things than you were, if you know your address, it is no more complicated to get started than to put an address in Google. It'll find your farm. Then you kind of have to do some dinking around to put the boundaries around it, but it will show you the soil types. It will tell you the pasture and hayland suitability group. It will estimate stocking rates for you. It has limitations, but so does this. But it's a great intersection between what I'm doing and what Adam is going to do in your exercise today. Okay? So here's your farm. This is my farm that I put together. Mainly, I was testing out the model, so I've got almost something in every category. You can put cow-calf pairs. You can put bulls. You can put horses. You can put sheep, goats, stockers. And if you do stockers is our seasonal cattle, something you buy and sell. right? If you buy and sell other type of livestock that you graze, you know, just white this out on your computer screen, right? And then print in whatever it is that you want to put and seasonally. But if you have stockers, you have to put in the months that you're going to graze them or feed them or take care of them on the farm. In this particular run, I did November, December, January, hoping to consume some stockpile tall fescue. Okay? So, and you can do other. Now let's talk about what this means to the model when you do it. When you put in the number of head, of course that is what it is, right? The more you have, the more they eat. You put in the weight, and the weight's important because that's how it estimates intake. Now you can adjust this intake rate to any number you want, I think actually, but we recommend 2 or 3 or 4% of body weight. The higher the performance of the animal, the higher the intake rate you have to plan for. But for year-round, we recommend 2.6. So we got 2.6 for the cow-calf pairs, 3% for the bulls, the horses, and so on down the list, okay? This gives you a definition of animal units. An animal unit equals a 1,000-pound cow with a calf through weaning, and your web soil survey will give output in animal unit months, okay? Now, if you do the math for a 1,000-pound cow for a month, it comes out to be about 1,000 pounds of dry matter per month to feed her. Okay, so you can find differing versions of an animal unit month, but to make math easy for us, one animal unit month is typically 1,000 pounds of dry matter. Why does that matter? That's the output that the web soil survey gives you, animal unit months. Okay, you'll find it in here, but it's not. This will just do it in pounds. Okay, okay. Anything you want to ask about this screen? This is the getting started part, right? You think you could get your farm information in here? I think you can. Let's go on. Then you pick your forage. Field names, this carries forward throughout the model. So whatever you want to call it, you can number them, you can name them. You can do it based on acres of forage. You don't have to do it on a field basis. But you are going to have to select a type of forage for that field, right? So you've got to do that. You've got the chance to find that soil suitability group, or that PHG, pasture and hayland group, and plug that in. And one is I would say a deep, well-drained soil. If you don't know what it is, choose one, and you won't run into roadblocks in the model. If you pick one that's like a super floody soil, Bill, what? Oh, go. Oh, if you pick one that's not suited, you can get a comment and it says pick another number. So just pick one when you're first starting out. When you do the web soil survey for your farm, you can find what this is, okay? The next block says management level, and this is a way to fudge. If you know that that this field is just the best one you have, then that means it's going to yield everything that it can yield. You can put high in there. What that does is it takes the data from the table and it gives you all of that forage to eat, right? If you know that it's been overgrazed and mistreated, you can back that down to medium or even low, and all it is it dials back the production by a fixed quantity. Medium is 80%, and that's actually, this is incorrect in the model I ran it on. I fixed it later, but the text it's right in the math. Medium is 80%, low is 60. So if you feel like that you're taking a beat-up farm and it's going to take a while to get right, This ultimately, all this is doing is helping you find your stocking rate, okay? So you, like Greg said, like Ray said, like Donna said, you don't, it's better to have too much grass than not enough, okay? Okay, so that gives us management level, high, medium, and low. Kind of forage. Now, when you put your cursor in this block, you get a drop-down box. And in your instructions, on the second page, there's a little screen capture of what that looks like. When you put your cursor right here, you'll get a downward-facing triangle. You click that, and it will show you, not all at once, but you can scroll through it, the 36 different forages that we have in the model. Now, you may not find a precise match to what you have. Just pick one that's close, okay? Pick one that's close. Grazing efficiency. Obviously, you can put any number you want to in grazing efficiency. You could put 100 there, but this lets you actually then do some tinkering to see what kind of difference going from continuous to rotational grazing might make for you in stocking rates, because we say, let's see where it's down below the screen, but you can see it on one of your later printouts. We say 30% is about continuous stock, is the grazing efficiency of continuous grazing, all right? And then when we're doing a better job, we approach 50, maybe 55, maybe 60, depending on how frequently you want to graze, which is what Greg was saying this morning. You have to design a system that you're going to do, right? A complicated system that you won't do is no good, all right? So when I know this tells me, this gives me a particular yield. This says I get 100% of it because that's the best forage, highly managed. So basically, I'm going to get everything that fescue and red and white clover field can produce for my farm, okay? And it carries that all the way through to the end. The next screens are just summaries. This one is screen number 5. It's the livestock forage needs. It simply takes the cow-calf pairs, all the animals you entered, multiplied their weight times the percent intake, and just put that number in the cell. Now, I forgot to tell you something about seasonal animals. Obviously, you're planning on those animals, a lot of those animals, to grow over the time you're keeping them, right? So if you pick the weight and put in their initial weight in that weight place, in that weight cell, then obviously at the end of the season they're much bigger, hopefully, and you don't have enough forage if you dialed it in just exactly right. So what we say to do is, if you think they'll gain 300 pounds, say it's a stocker, it gains 300 pounds from March to November, then put the average between the starting and ending weight in there. Put in, say it starts at 4 and goes to 700. Then put in 550, whatever that is, the average of the two, okay? And that will help you, and you could put more than that in there too, but that'll help you not run out of feed on paper because we forgot to account for the fact they're getting bigger, okay? The next one is the forage production schedule, and it just summarizes everything you've put. Now, when you see a green cell, like at the bottom, you can plug in here additional feed that you may bring onto the farm or choose to buy. Now, all that does is, well, what that does, it carries forward to the last screen to tell you, that it's a cost, because you'll be able to put a cost for that, and you can see that in your summary screen. This is, okay, make sure yeah, okay. Now, interesting, okay, had 2 slides in there, the same thing. Tab number 7 is the time control worksheet, and I will say, don't mess with this right now, because actually, this is still under construction, in your model. But everything on this page gets carried over to tab 9. This is the real important page, I think, because I'm visually oriented. I want to see how, when have I got to make hay and when do I have to feed hay? And you can see that it goes from March or April through March. So here's our flush and here's our deficit. It also does that in pounds or in tons. In this case down here is written in tons. This system, as it is we ran it, is 28 tons short of forage. Okay. Then you get to tab 9, and it's a summary of everything that you've done before. It allows you to put a value on bought and sold feed. If you had hay extra, you could sell it. It doesn't exactly do a lot of calculations with those numbers, but it just reminds you of the value of that system, because this is designed to compare one system to another, okay? It does report carrying capacity. It shows you that carrying capacity in animal unit months, and also for the average weight of all the animals on the farm. If you have a menagerie, like I do, that's not so meaningful, right? Because it just tells you, you don't have I think this one came out to be what? What is the average? My average animal weighed, I can't read it. Doesn't matter. But at any rate, it's not relevant because you got 1,200-pound cows and 300-pound sheep or whatever. You got various things. And it does go ahead and prefigures, whatever, a calculation for carrying capacity at 30%, 45%, and 60% grazing efficiency. Okay? So for just putting the numbers through one time can tell you then how many animals the model says you can run at 3 different grazing efficiencies. All right? I think that's my cue. I think I'm right on time. I am right on time. Very good. All right, so we did do a lot of work. Not me so much as the programmer. This used to be a pretty hard to see, hard to use, I think, interface in Excel. We have simplified the interface. It will run on computers and tablets, and I suppose a very big smartphone, right? It is not very screen friendly when you're trying to look at the results. It has an updated list of forages, and it lets you evaluate existing and planned changes in forage base or grazing efficiency. So, Dr. Ray, I'm all done. It will be when we get the final version. It's in the NRCS menu, but I will send it to you all directly. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Like when you put in your kind of forage, I guess if you have a mix of things, you just choose the heaviest, like the most prominent forage in your field? Or?
If you look at the tables in the back, if it's a cool season forage, they don't differ a heck of a lot. So a red clover tall fescue is going to be like an orchard grass red clover. It's going to be that, big production months are middle of April, May, June, July, August, and not very much. So it's close. Something similar. You bet.
Oh, and I was also going to ask, in the cow calf, if you have cow calf, does that calculate or does that include the weight gain of the calf in that, or do you need to figure that out?
It's not very sophisticated with that. It's not very sophisticated with that. It doesn't really. It just says that cow-calf unit is an animal unit. So Jeff, how would you say the model handles it?
It doesn't, but at this point, what you can do is take the average weight from, if you have a calf that's born in March and you're going to run it through the summer, and then we offer 600 pounds, then make that 300-pound average weight adjustment on that calf.
So if your cow's 1,200 pounds, would you say
1,500
1,500, and that way you've got plenty. What would you dial in for intake rate? This 2.6, or what? Yes, excellent.
Let's give Jimmy a hand.
Okay.